Jesse from Nostalgic Reviews here. This will be my last video on 90s Nickelodeon Week. And come back next week for Doctor Who Week. Now, for 90s game shows on Nickelodeon were a lot of fun. And they were designed specifically for kids and their families to watch. The most memorable one for me was Family Double Dare. Family Double Dare was a show hosted by Mark Summers, who very much like Howie Mandel was a germaphobe. So, anytime the slime came down, he would have to go off stage. It was just kind of funny. Now, Mark Summers always seemed really, really cool. He was one of the coolest people ever when I was a kid. He was one of the people I wanted to meet. And he also hosted a show called What Would You Do? Now, this one was very similar to the TV show. I'm trying to think of what it was called. Let's Make a Deal, where you get to pick from 3 certain boxes and complete tasks. It also reminded me a lot of Bozo the Clown, where you get to actually play the grand prize game with some of the games that they designed. It was probably the coolest TV show when I was a kid. Well, every 90s Nickelodeon game show was cool. The next one that I remember is Legends of the Hidden Temple. Now, this was an interesting game show. It involved a statue creature named Omek, who was a giant tiki. And he guarded the temples. In every mission, every day you would be sent on a secret mission to recover a product or something that was invented that had been stolen, and it's hidden in a temple. Now, this also brings up one of the most terrifying things from my childhood, and that was the temple guards, who always jumped out at you and scared you and stole your life points. That was the one thing I do not think I would like about being on Legends of the Hidden Temple. Next was Wild and Crazy Kids. This was an almost, let's say, field day type show where kids just did wild and crazy stunts. It was a very cool show hosted by a then unknown Omar Gooding and a couple of other actors. The one I remember most is Omar Gooding. The next TV show I'm going to talk about is Guts. Guts was a kids' version of American Gladiators. And they had one of the most awesome prizes ever, where you actually got to take home a piece of the big mountain that you climbed. That was always cool, and the task looked so hard to do too, with swimming in the pool and then having to be the fastest. I can't imagine having to do that. Now we move on to the later 90s game shows. The first one I will address is Figure It Out. Figure It Out was a fun show starring Summer Sanders. She hosted a show which was very similar to What's My Line, where celebrity panelists guessed what was the secret talent that the guest had. And the last of the real Nickelodeon game shows was a game show called Double Dare 2000, which was a revamp of Family Double Dare. It was always a lot of fun, and I don't remember the name of the star, but he was always a lot of fun, and he had a co-host named Mel, I think, but I'm not sure. But that was sort of the end of the game show renaissance. Now, since that was kind of a short one, I'm going to cover a review of one of my favorite Nickelodeon shows, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Are You Afraid of the Dark was an interesting TV show. It wasn't really that scary, but it kind of was. And it also inspired M. Night Shyamalan to write The Sixth Sense. And The Sixth Sense is one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. So, if you remember any of these shows, please make sure to comment and post them, and I'll mention your favorite Nickelodeon shows next week. And get ready for Doctor Who week starting next week. That's all for now.